y'all, it's Elisa, the Scrappy Wife behind scrappywife.com, and today I have an art journaling process video for you. I am working in my Dina Wakley media journal that I have been working in for 2020. Super fun but super challenging, with lots of different textures and mediums to work with in here. So I'm going to be working in here, and I am going to do an art journaling entry with a photo. This is something I've only tried once before, so kind of half scrapbooking, half art journaling. I have a couple of other Dina Wakley pieces, some tissue paper, collage paper, and then her collage collective that I would like to use in this entry. So I'll make sure to list all of the supplies in the description box below this video when I am done, in case you're interested in checking any of them out. Otherwise, I'll put you on fast forward. Let's go. The first piece of paper that I find in this collage collective is this ticket, and I love the ticket with the butterfly on it, so I'm just going to cut out just the ticket part to use on my page, just trimming around it. And now I'm just looking for a page that I want to work with. We'll go with this one. And I love that butterfly. I think it's so cute, but I thought I kind of want my photo to be peeking out from underneath the butterfly, like a layered effect. So I'm just going to trim it out a little bit with my detail scissors, and I kind of go back and forth. Oh, I want to trim it more. So I end up almost cutting a whole flap there, but there, I like how that ended up layering. And now I'm just going to flip through the book and look for something else that is in that same color scheme with those purples and blues that kind of catches my eye. And what I end up finding are some really cool birds. Love those birds. And then for some reason, this woman just jumped out at me. So I'm going to go back to her. I'm going to bring that page out, and I want to end up using her as well. She has some circles on her shirt that kind of mimic these circles that are in the tag. So I think that's the tie together. And I'm just going to tear her out instead of cutting, just because I want more natural look. So I'm just tearing around the edges of that piece, and then I'm going to figure out where I want her on the page. And the original idea was to have her on the right, and she would be kind of looking at the kids over on the left part of the page. And then you'll see I end up changing it around. I fuss with it a lot just to figure out how I want the arrangement of these birds and this woman. I like the concept of all of them, but I just couldn't get it worked out. And I haven't had a lot of luck bringing things over the binding section of this journal. Meaning when I lay it over the fold, it just hasn't laid really nicely because of how the mediums change. So I don't want to go over the fold. So I end up adjusting it a little bit. She's looking away from the kids, but that's okay, because I kind of think of them as telling the story, my daughter reading this book, and the story's kind of happening over on the left. So in the tissue paper, there was a piece with phrases, and so I'm going to use some of these phrases. I just tear them again loosely from the paper, and now I'm just tearing up some more paper and placing it behind. I put all of this on super fast forward because it's nothing special. It's just me playing with paper. Working with these pre-done papers is a great jumping off point for an art journal page when maybe you're feeling tired or a little bit uninspired. I love having these just to look at for inspiration, because A, they're beautiful, and B, they can be a really good starting point for a page. And that's what that ticket ended up being, and all these other pieces are coordinating really nicely. So I'm kind of getting it loosely where I want it. When I think of maybe I'm going to add some background, so I remove all of those, and I'm pulling out my Jane Davenport mermaid markers, which I love. They're kind of like a watercolor, and you can see I'm just going to kind of move it across the page, and now I'm working with water. They are super saturated. They have so much color in them. It doesn't take a lot. So I'm adding plenty of water, letting that color kind of work down the page. I'm hoping it's picking up that purple. It has a little bit more pink in it than the purple that is in the tag, but that's okay. I'm going to mix in a little bit of blue. You can see just adding water, letting the colors blend, and I'm creating a line from the top right to the middle, and that's going to kind of follow the line of the story being created. So blending the colors, they blend really nicely. I think that, hey, maybe I'll try and see if it works on the jean material, the denim over here. It does not, if you're wondering. The mermaid markers do not work. I should have just stuck with acrylic paints over there, but that's okay. I tried a little bit. Now I'm adding just a little bit of green in there because there are some hints of green in the collage pieces. So mixing those in at the edges. I love how these Jane Davenport mermaid markers just mix and blend. They are so fun to play with. Take a little bit of getting used to, but I like them a whole lot. Hey, speaking of acrylic paint, now I'm going to work on adding some acrylic paint through this stencil. This is one of my favorite stencils. It is from the Crafters Workshop, I believe. I've had it for a year now. I love, love, love it. And I'm using some Handmade Modern paints in the leaf in the bright teal, and adding that because I want to bring some color over onto that denim besides the collage pieces, and I feel like acrylic paint is probably my best bet. So what I'm going to do is I have just a big brush that I'm filling in some of these arrows because I'm wanting the concept of the story coming from the right and going to the left. I thought these triangles kind of served as arrows, which works out really well. And I'm filling them in with this bright green that is hinted at in some of the collage pieces. And then I'm going to tone down the bright green with the bright teal paint. And I'll just add a little bit of it with a really dry brush and mixing it in just at the edges of the triangle. And as it goes through, it does blend actually really nicely. And with the dry brush, I just pull it out towards the middle of that triangle, and it adds a very cool effect. I'm glad I decided to go with a couple of different colors instead of just that green, because I think that would have been a lot, and it's going to look like a lot as I go through this page. But remember, there are pieces layered on top of it, so don't freak out when I move the stencil. It'll be okay. It's okay to have some bright colors. You guys know me. I'm all about the color all the time. So toning it down with that bright teal, and ta-da! It kind of looks like fish swimming just a little bit, maybe a little bit. I am going to repeat my little triangle fish in a couple other parts of the page. Over here on the denim, again, when you're working on the denim, the acrylic paint has been what I have found that works really well, that kind of holds its color. So I'm going to add a few of the triangles over there, same concept with the teal, and then I'm going to add it in a third place just because I want it to be what kind of pulls the page all together, the whole double spread layout. So I'll just stick up here in the top right, same thing, and just 3 triangles up here because it was getting a little bit much with all of that color on the page. It was a lot, but like I said, no worries, it'll get covered up. A lot of it will. So I let that dry for the most part, and then I'm going to start bringing my elements back on. Now I've added some sewing detail. You might not be able to see, but I actually sewed the woman and the bird together. There's some sewing detail around the edge of the tag. I just like the threads on that. Recently I've been using it in all my projects. I like threads that are hanging off the side. I just think it looks really cool, and so I like it. So I'm gonna stick with that. I'm gonna add it to all the things because there's nothing wrong with repeating yourself if it is speaking to you. So once I feel like all of these elements are kind of where I want them, then I'm gonna start working with getting some words down. So I'm kind of trying to decide what will go where, what works where, because again, I don't want to go over the edge, over the middle. Everything kind of has its own side, but I want it to be cohesive. So using my ATG gun because it is a really strong adhesive, and I feel like it works really well on the denim. So I have my girl cluster right there, and then I'm going to start sticking these other pieces down. First I'll put the photo into the tag and then stick that down as a whole. And you can a little bit see some of that sewing detail. It's hard to see on camera. You'll see it in some of the pictures at the end, but I like what it added. It did add some nice texture as I was working. Okay, before I put the tag down, I do decide to go ahead and put down my first phrase, create the world you want, with some clear gesso, and then that way I thought it might be peeking out from behind the tag. So the tag is all ready to go. Just wanted to make sure it was going to fit nicely. And then I will layer my little bird looking over my kiddos. This was just such a sweet moment. My daughter was out of bed and I went to look for her to say goodnight. She wasn't in her room. And so I was a little bit upset. And then I opened my boy's room and there she was reading to her little brother. So it was one of those sweet moments and a reminder to kind of embrace those times, because it's been a few months. You guys know that. 2020 has been a year for sure. So embracing those sweet moments is pretty important. All right, just layering up the last few pieces and getting that last word on. My water was getting kind of dirty, so I was nervous that it was going to be yellowy, but it all worked out. Getting that word phrase on with some clear gesso. And then I'm looking at my layout, and there's just something missing. So I pull in a stencil, and some of the edges were a little sharp for me, and so I thought I'm gonna layer some paint over the top. This is a stencil that was sent to me as an extra little gift from a recent order I did from one of my Instagram friends. Top Knots and Jesus is awesome, and I ordered some things from her, and then she sent the stencil in the package, and it is just adorable. So I'm being really sloppy with that bright teal paint and adding it through the stencil in some different parts, and for me it actually is just softening up the whole entry. I had some sharp edges, especially with the photo, because I chose not to trim it, and some of the paper, I don't know, it just wasn't feeling very organic to me. It was very I don't know, it's hard when you're working with those collage pieces, and I wanted to make them feel like part of the entry and not just something stuck on the page. So layering the paint over the top really worked well for me, and I like how it ended up coming out even with the messiness. I think that is important. Okay, I wanted to add a title. I ended up going to my alpha stash, and I'm going to use these alpha stickers, and I chose them because I really wanted it to pop off the denim, and I was afraid that if I tried to do hand lettering, it wasn't going to pop off enough. So I'm happy with those stickers, plus it was fast, which I really liked. Tell me a story. What a great title for a page. And now I decided to go with one more quote, because I have a quote at the top right and a quote towards the bottom left, and I just felt like it would flow better if there was also a quote in the middle, almost like the story was happening on a timeline. And I know it's flowing opposite than you would normally read, but that's okay. I like the quote in the middle. I think it worked out really nicely, and I think it really ended up bringing it all together. Once I get that quote down, it's funny because you'll see me pick up my journal and kind of give it a little shake, like, ta-da, I'm all done. And as I'm looking at it, I'm like, nah, maybe I'm not all done. So I put that down. I'm like, look, I'm done. I finished my art journal page. Ta-da. But wait, there's more. I decide, no, okay, I'm going to get my Jane Davenport mermaid markers. There's just a little bit of the edges that I wanted to fill in. Like I said, I didn't want it, I don't know, it just didn't feel quite flowy enough. So I wanted that purple to come out. So I'm bringing a little bit more of the Jane Davenport color in there, especially right there with the triangles. A little bit of color goes a long way, and happy that I came back and kind of brought those two pages together. And now I am done for real. Thank you so much for joining me. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button as well as the bell notification button. I have all of the supplies that I use linked in the description box down below, so be sure to check those out. And there's also a link to join my email newsletter that goes out every couple weeks. I hope that you have a fabulous day, and as always, keep it creative.